Hello and welcome to this 8th edition of the Echo Chamberlain livestream, which still, despite all the odds, is still not named the Echo Chamber. We celebrate a week in which Bob Iger, the weatherman, is at the heart of a cyclone at Disney, and we mourn the end of the 2-year-long career of the fantastic Lizzo. To discuss this and more, I'm joined by a lovely panel of guests. And first up, the United States national debt had just crossed $34 trillion and is currently adding $1 million every 30 seconds. Most of it can be attributed to the babysitting, college fund, and daycare expenditure of my first guest. From the great state of Illinois, it is Mr. Greg Owen.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for having me. And I don't think you have to worry too much. I don't think there's much difference between a billion and a trillion. I think just the one letter there in the beginning. So it's really not as bad as it seems. I mean, 6-7 trillion, who cares? What's a couple trillion between friends? You know what I mean? Hey.
Mm-hmm. So what's going to happen? Like, it's gone past the point where it could never actually be paid. So why even bother counting it as a metric anymore?
That is the same question that I ask myself constantly. We just print it and it's worth less. And I believe the proposed budget that President Biden just put out calls for our budget next year to be $7.5 trillion. And just the service on the debt that we have is just shy of $1 trillion next year. We'll be over $1 trillion in 2026. It's really astounding, honestly. This is like Weimar Republic type shit going on here.
It is, yeah. I mean, why bother even servicing the debt if the debt's never going to get paid? It doesn't make any sense. So every taxpayer now owes approximately $250,000 per taxpayer. So are you going to go to the IRS and just fill that out tomorrow, get it over and done with?
I mean, I would, except that same amount won't be worth as much later. So I'm just going to keep putting it off like the government is doing. So,
Yeah. Oh, well. Well, you keep tight over there because we're going to be joined by another Yank. So my next guest is streaming with us after pulling over at the side of the New Jersey Turnpike. He had a 2-second cameo as a corpse in a blood-spattered shootout scene in the 8th episode of the 4th season of The Sopranos, and Bruce Springsteen calls him the boss. From the Garden State, it is Dark Hour.
I was once pulled over on the New Jersey Turnpike. It sucks. They really don't want the the New Jersey State Troopers do not want to listen to you. And I train with a bunch of them, so it's
full disclosure, I don't actually know what the New Jersey Turnpike is. I just thought it's something to do with New Jersey.
Oh well, that's I mean, it's one of the most annoyingly busy roads in the entire country because it's the main pipeline into New York City from New Jersey. It connects between Philadelphia and New York, so it's a very busy road. And it's when you get pulled over on it sucks because they're pissed off. And I agree with everything you guys said about the dollar value and the debt. My retirement plan at this point is that by the time I turn 65, money will not matter. The world will have collapsed and I'm not going to bother saving it. So
fair enough.
That's where I'm going to go.
I'm saving up scraps of metal for armor pieces. I'm thinking I'm foreseeing a Mad Max style future. So I'm getting ready.
I have a storm, so I'm just going to turn into a bunker.
Yeah, maybe all the survivalists are actually going to be right, like just buying all that ammo and gear and stuff. But yeah, I don't know why you guys are called the Garden State, but when people think of New Jersey, they just think of gigantic industrial buildup and
So actually, there's the only section that's really industrial buildup is up by New York. So you have like Newark, Elizabeth, Bayonne, that's all industrialized area. But if you go out like south and west, it's a lot. So the entire coastline is obviously, beach. And then when you go out west, there's a lot of farmland all the way out to Pennsylvania. So there's actually a lot of really nice areas that are just kind of forgotten about because everyone just thinks about that small section up by New York when they think, because most people fly into Newark Airport when they come to New Jersey. So.
I get you. Well, the great Despot of Antrim will be joining us eventually. It's a little early in his part of the world, so he's dragging himself out of bed, I bet. But he'll be here anon. Or he forgot the time difference, one of the two. So anyway, let's get underway and get into some news. All right. I'm a little worried that no one in the chat, not even any New Zealanders, has recognized and called out Billy T. James in that news intro. But one day it'll happen. So anyway, I wanted to start off by talking about just a whole big spread of mid. You get the Godzilla and the big monkey dude, King Kong fella thing, new Empire. And then you've got just a mid Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and you've got a mid Roadhouse Bouncer Empire. Everything is just a whole bunch of dumb mid stuff with empires in it. We've even got Owen's Wrath Midwest Empire. Just a whole bunch of content to do with all of that. When does this come out, Greg, by the way?
That's going to be well, it came out last month, it looks like. So
all right, yeah,
actually it came out 2 months ago, apparently.
It's already
yeah, it's already out for a month and a half.
Yeah.
I missed my own red carpet.
Damn. Oh well. So yeah, I just wanted to start off with this whole bunch of just dull, pure midness. And that thing I was talking about a little while ago of just this trap we could fall into of thinking, okay, well, it's not crap, therefore I can feel pleasant about it and I can feel good about it. But the monkey thing, everyone's been talking about it, saying that it's just pure mid and there's nothing particularly cool about it. And it's very formulaic and paint by numbers. Mm-hmm. And the Ghostbusters, again, just crowded and bloated with characters and no magic or effervescence or charm to it whatsoever. And then, just a random Roadhouse. Might as well chuck that in. So has anyone actually gone to see any of this mid content?
I saw Godzilla X Kong and I watched Roadhouse. I did not see Frozen Empire. I decided to skip on that one. Mostly because I didn't see the previous one either. So I was like, I'm not going to bother.
Yeah. No, I haven't. I didn't get a chance. I was on out for vacation last week, so I haven't got a chance to see any of this stuff. And the only one that even looks mildly interesting is Godzilla Kong. Just because I'm not expecting it, I'm just expecting an action mindless kaiju battle thing. So I think that will bother me the least.
It's pretty. You pretty much hit the nail on the head. It's the first act is super fast. They try to like bang, 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 give you all these details. Then the second act slows down ridiculous. They actually have multiple big monster fights that just happen off screen, which annoyed the shit out of me because I'm like, that's why I paid for the ticket. But it doesn't insult you too much, if that's the best way I could put it. It doesn't do anything. Obviously I don't want to use like terms like woke and all that stuff because it's like it's just very like you said, paint by numbers. It's fun at points. There's some flaws, and I guess I can't speak for Ghostbusters, and Roadhouse was just pointless. They shouldn't have even done that one.
No one's throat even got ripped out. So
no,
big disappointment. But I should have put that on the poster, like you won't hate it or it won't disappoint you, whatever you said then. Yeah. But
it is a movie and you can watch it.
That's right. But
why nice visuals. That's about it.
Why do they clutter it with like hollow earth nonsense that no one cares about and no one is interested in? Like, why would you overcomplicate something which is designed to be fun and simple and stupid so people can have a big laugh?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, the whole hollow earth thing is just to have a secondary staging location for Kong to have battles with his people, I guess is the best way to put it. Anybody who's seen the trailer has seen that there's other giant monkeys, and there's a whole section of uncharted area that they go and find, and they find all of his people or all of his monkeys, whatever you want to call them. But it's really just a place to have the separate stories, and that's one of the problems with almost the entire MonsterVerse series is that, except for maybe that first Godzilla movie, all of them are trying to have multiple movies in one. And here they separate them. There's like the movie happening in a hollow earth, and then also Godzilla's up on the surface doing his thing. And And that's where it kind of starts to lose you, because they keep jumping between these plots. It's, there's the one with Kong and his people in the Hollow Earth Uncharted area, the humans in the Hollow Earth trying to do their thing, and then Godzilla up on top doing his kill other kaijus to become Pinkzilla. And it just keeps jumping between these, and you never really get a chance to settle on one. And then they finally kind of just clash at the end into one story. And it's by that point, it's been 2.5 hours and your brain is already pretty much turned off.
You're never quite sure what the agency of these things are. Like sometimes they're just gigantic, stupid creatures who are mindless and get pissed off at stuff. And other times they seem to have some kind of intuition about stuff, and they're figuring things out and making moral judgments about humanity. So you never know which one it's going to be from scene to scene. If they were going to do like the original King Godzilla worked really well, because when it came out in Japan, it was like a huge metaphor for the atomic blasts, or a huge metaphor for the awakening, slumbering America. So if they were to make like Godzilla or Kong successful today, what would be the huge energizing metaphor that people would go, oh, like it's a thing for this, and people would feel it at a latent level? Like it wouldn't be wokeness. Would it be the debt? It'd be the national debt.
It'd be the national debt.
A gigantic sprawling creature that just gets bigger and rampages its way and destroys society.
Well, that's already been made. Schoolhouse Rock had a whole song called Tyrannosaurus Debt. It was it's a classic. It's a banger. But no, you hit on an interesting point, is like why these movies all feel kind of hollow, because they don't have any sort of theme. Like it's obviously perfectly fine for not every movie to be a Scorsese film, deep, super well acted, amazing, thing. But even like our old cheesy action movies had some kind of theme. Like the old Godzilla movies, as silly as they look now, they had like a metaphor or a theme or something. And even the goofy ones, even like Predator, Rambo, silly, over the top action stuff, like there was some kind of theme about human resilience or PTSD or something. And they don't have to be, like I said, the most incredible Oscar worthy, best acted, best shot thing you've ever seen. But there is still a difference between a movie being a hollow, just plot driven, formulaic piece of crap, and having at least some kind of unifying theme, some sort of human emotion that ties it all together, that even if it is a silly action movie, it's still something that you connect with. And I think that's what you're not seeing. I think it's why Godzilla -1 really wowed everybody, because it got back to that original thing. The theme of that movie was like the guy dealing with these feelings of cowardice and honor and things of that nature. So even though it was a monster battle movie, there was a human emotion that they were grappling with.
There was also that interesting sense of society in our cities are already devastated pretty much, and just making their way back after the war, and then there's this new thing. So that was a fascinating new dynamic, rather than something smashing and marauding its way through a gleaming New York like with King Kong. So that was kind of cool. But Ghostbusters seems kind of like the most depressing to me. Like that's a film that should have a gleam and a magic to it, and an excitement, and be great on so many levels. And this just looks like just kind of the worst of fan fiction, cobbled together by AI with no soul to it, and chucking Bill Murray at the end for what, 20 seconds or whatever, how long he's on the screen. That's just kind of sad. Like growing up, like if someone was having a birthday party and you put on Ghostbusters, then the parents could just walk away for 2 hours because they know their kids are going to be super engrossed and laughing their heads off at this cool film. Who's going to be super engrossed by this film?
Oh, yeah. I think that with the Ghostbuster movies, they lost the gimmick worked that first time really well, and then every time after it just starts to lose a little bit more, because you can't really surprise much with them. And really the main thing that attracted people to that first one was the cast itself, because it was Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray. They had a history together of being on SNL, and they were well known by that. Like at this point, this just seems like random people thrown together for the sake of being a name.
Yeah. The more I think about it, the 2016 one, in the right hands, that could have been a smash. Like the SNL talent on that was really top-notch stuff. Those those women. So if they'd had a good script, it could have actually succeeded. And if it hadn't looked like, tacky, gaudy garbage on the screen, it could have been really cool. But we'll never know. So that's just
I do think that these current ones are suffering from that one as well. The 2016 one built up so much bad will that the subsequent sequels to the originals had this like holdover, almost, disdain because of that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see what's going on here. So this is the big news this week. I just put out a video about this. So Bob Iger, the weatherman. It's interesting with Disney because like there's no impermeable icons anymore. Like Kevin Feige used to be like Mr. Untouchable, like Mr. Heart of the Zeitgeist. Now he's just kind of like a doughy-faced guy whose best days are behind him and he's lost that magic. And Kathleen Kennedy after The Force Awakens, like the queen on the throne, you can't even get near her with what she's done. And then you have Dave Filoni, the man in the black hat, who was super cool and rejuvenated Star Wars. And now he's just kind of like this guy who's overplayed his hand and doesn't really know what to do and is given too much power. But I never imagined I'd see Bob Iger, like a guy made out of Teflon with the most perfectly sculpted image in Hollywood. To see him sort of flailing around and having to go into damage control and having to pool his resources and call in his friends and go on a campaign to shake off Nelson Peltz. So tomorrow the Disney investors are meeting up and they're going to vote on the board. And either they're going to stick with Bob Iger's board, or they're going to go with Nelson Peltz and one of his other guys on the board to try and shake things up a little bit. And so you've seen Bob Iger spend $40 million on a PR campaign to try and sway the shareholders around. And which is interesting to me because even if he wins, he's still essentially been dealt a black eye either way because his image has been kind of like shaken up. And the media he used to be able to rely on have sort of been a bit sort of taciturn and lukewarm about him and even like tested the waters of contesting him and challenging his preeminence. And so that's very strange to see. So I think as far as I can see, there was a little thing where it was shifting towards Peltz amongst the shareholders, but then the tide sort of swung the other way. No one wants to be on the losing side, so all the big premier ones are coming in, and they seem to be coming behind Iger. So Peltz was pissed off that the Disney shares, had dipped from like 200 down to 160 or something like that. But since then, they've picked up again, and they seem to have a bit of momentum. And Bob Iger has shuffled around the slate of films, so the more woke ones get pushed behind the stead line. So that can also be okay for the investors. So that's my big takeaway is that I think Bob Iger is going to win, but he's just going to get a kick in the shins.
He is. I think he is going to win, and I think that the fact that the price is kind of working up over the last couple of weeks is really that's the thing that's saving him, because if at the end of the day these companies like I read today, a lot of the votes are starting to go his way, and that's because of, like you mentioned, the big players, your Vanguards, your T. Rowe Price, your BlackRock, all the big institutions, they're like 100% behind him, and they collectively control a very large amount of the company. So he's got a lot of that. Like you said, he still has a little bit of public support. He still has that kind of image that he's riding on, but I don't know how much longer his career is going to be after this, because as you said, he just doesn't have the same image anymore. He doesn't have the same confidence that anybody, nobody just innately believes that he has a plan to just lead this company out. He doesn't have a plan. His plan right now is quite literally cutting things. He's cutting jobs. He's cutting spending. He's cutting movies. There's no real creation happening. So short term, I think the stock price movement is pretty incredible. It's up like 40% of what it was in January, December. I think it bottomed out briefly at like 78. It was riding in the 80s. And I think today it was at like 120. So you're talking about, a 50% increase in price over just 3 or 4 months, which is very impressive. And I'm sure the stock holders are breathing better than they were. But a couple of years ago, it was, it peaked at 200 and it was very consistently in the upper 100. So even 120 is, if you're a long-term holder, you're maybe even after 8-9 years at this point, which is
Yeah,
not a
that's
great
right.
look.
Yeah.
So, and then he got that dividend last year. That was a little bit of a Hail Mary, I think, to pull that out, even though it was only 60 cents. Like if I was getting a 0.4% dividend, I think I'd be a little pissed about that. But you're absolutely right that I think he will win this. I think they'll retain the seats, but it's going to be such a blow to his the fact that he's even having to have this battle is a very serious confidence bruiser, and he really doesn't have anything to show. I think that's the reason that nobody's confident is that you asked great questions in your video today. Like, what is your plan to dig out of this? And right now, the only thing he can think to do is go, let's cut some of the more politically motivated projects. Like, let's cut some of, let's just get back to the super safe zone. But the problem is that results in, like what we were just talking about with those past 3 movies, it results in a bunch of really soulless, really formulaic, color by number movies. And that is not what Walt Disney was known for. He was an innovator, like you said today. And he is just not inspiring. I don't see how he's inspiring confidence in anybody, because the only thing he has in his playbook right now is cut stuff that isn't working, cut jobs, cut spending, so that the numbers look good. We can get the stock price up. We can create shareholder value, but that's not a future plan for a multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah. Cooking the books, just cooking the books.
Yeah. I mean, if this had taken place like a couple of months earlier, I think he probably would have lost, just based on the trajectory of everything. So that's a pretty little narrow window where he just managed to get in there. But the man in the thick buttoned black cardigan and white shirt looking pleasant in his little video presentations. That guy's no longer really properly that guy anymore. It's kind of like in sport, if you hear even the faintest rumor in the worst publication that the coach has lost the dressing room, that usually means the coach has lost the dressing room. Yeah. And so I kind of feel that the magic is gone for him. And in terms of, there's one good upshot, which is, even though Pounce is going to lose, probably, I think Bob Iger and the rest of the higher ups and team will just look at, what happened and go, okay, we don't want to go through this again. We don't want to go through all this turmoil. So let's factor in and just acknowledge some of the stuff that, as I said in my video, where Bob Iger kind of let the wolf into the hen house by, all this woke stuff and identity politics stuff and disproportionate focus on identity. So that's probably one good offshoot of all this, because if Pounce had got on the board, the whole thing might have gone into a state of kind of like people being antagonistic and confrontational towards each other. I don't quite know how the logistics and mechanics of it work, but you might have had a lot of spats and infighting within the system, which probably would have been
and ugly. I think it also gives it provides media coverage or media cover rather for Iger and the rest of the board, whereas like when Disney continues to perform poorly and the movies perform poorly and the shows perform poorly, well, then you've got a bunch of hacks in the media who absolutely would be like, well, it's these, Tryon guys that are on the board now, and they're just mucking everything up. And poor Bob just can't get things done like he needs to do. And then, he's got these antagonists on his board now and yada, yada. So if Peltz does lose, that removes any of those excuses. Like, you won, Bob. You have everybody on the board that, everybody retain their seats. They're all yes men for you. They're doing what you want. And the company is still not performing well. So what's your excuse? And I don't know if they've I've seen a lot of speculation about like who's going to come up. Their CFO, it was a woman, and I can't remember her name now, but she left last year. So I don't even know that they really have anybody that they're grooming. No pun intended, to take over for Bob. Their future prospects are very bleak looking. Like
pretty weak bench.
Don't have a plan.
Well, speaking of Tryon, the Tryon logo, like the business company logo. I was looking at it because it's so funny. It reminds me of like those 80s or 90s films where the company is really sinister. So the Tryon one is the blue one in the corner. And you've got like Wayland Yutani, the RoboCop Omni Consumer Products, Cyberdyne Systems. It just reminds me of one of those really old school Sinister Company logos.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And honestly, it looks a lot like the Cyberdyne logo.
It does. Yeah, it's really scary.
There was one question in the chat, by the way. Whose $40 million did he spend for that? Was it the shareholders themselves that he spent that money to convince the shareholders? Because that would be hilarious. And if it was 40 million of his own, that's I don't know what his salary is, but that might be more than he actually gets paid in the year to try and retain a seat on the same board.
Yeah, that's true. They weren't exactly the highest quality, top-notch productions. Like one is just like a screen presentation with Pinocchio, and his nose grows every time. Like Nelson Peltz is alleging that if he got into the and then Pinocchio's nose goes, "Oh, really?" That's my favorite thing from American political ads. The "Oh, really."
American political ads are some of the best shit slop you'll ever see.
They're incredible.
Well, it's the only time on television where you see rugged, stoic men. It's like sun rises over Midwest cornfields and farmers in slow motion smiling and with flags fluttering in the background. So you get this the strange little surge of masculinity for like two months.
Years ago, when Family Guy was still like a show worth watching, they had like an episode where he ran against Lois for like school board, and everywhere he would like walk across the football field and just put his foot up on a desk. It just happened to be in the center of the field. And it was so accurate to how American political ads are. There's always like a random bench or something for the guy to put his foot up on. It's fantastic.
Just has a puppy that he just licks his face, you know. Or I like the negative ones. Like years ago, we were having this big debate about healthcare, and they ran ads of then I can't remember these guys' names anymore, but they ran an ad of one of the popular Republican leaders pushing a woman in a wheelchair off of a cliff. Because
I remember that. Like, I remember that. Yeah.
If they pass this bill, or if this bill doesn't pass, you know, basically this guy, something Ryan, you know, he's killing grandma. Like, I mean, it was a real ad. It was on television. You know, they had a look-alike just like this guy, and he really just dumped a wheelchair over a like.
It's always the best because they'll like zoom in on the picture of the person and it'll turn black and white and like just slowly close in on their like eye or something. It'll be like, did you know that he voted against giving your children food? And it's like, what?
It's almost like as Paul Ryan, Michael said, it's almost like a bad infomercial where somebody's trying to, you know, just do a basic task and it's black and white. And they're like, this is the Republican leadership who can't even open a can of soup.
And it just had like the note underneath. And then it brightens up to the capoed guitar, ching, 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 when it shows the bright contrast. I love American political ads. They're my jam. Because they get lower and lower in quality when you get to state level. Then the production becomes really shonky and janky.
Oh yeah. You should see the local ones if you've ever seen the local ones. Are fantastic because it's always an issue nobody even knows about.
Right.
So it'll be like, did you know that that he or she voted against 41C, and they don't even tell you what that means. It's like, oh, I love that's great.
At like the local county or those lower levels, Republicans aren't afraid to be Republicans, so they'll just be like,
you get the
boots and stuff and the cowboy hat.
My favorite.
I don't give a rip about my opponent's attempt to take down Proposition 8. Like, it's great. I love those little.
My favorite ones are like the politicians who have just built in their into their character is the ads. Like Cory Booker was notorious for this when he was the mayor of Newark. He would just randomly show up with a shovel at somebody's house, like, I'm here to dig out your driveway, or like there'd be a random ladder and he'd climb up to get a cat, and it was like, what the hell? What are you doing here? You're the mayor of this. Why are you not doing other things?
My favorite one will still be, there was a candidate, I think in Delaware, she's a Republican, and some like Oppo research found that she had like the faintest slight connection to something, not quite occult or witchery, but something to do with like spiritualism, and then like this whole thing came off that she was a witch, and she put out an ad where she began with, I'm not a witch. I'm you. I represent your values. And that was the end of her career.
I would just like to point out that we went from evil corporations right into government. That was fantastic. Fantastic. Like,
I mean, there's really not much of a difference
not
in
much
America.
difference there.
We've got. I don't know about other countries, but we have this really fun habit in our federal government where we they create bills that are named something like the Feed All the Kittens and Puppies Act of 2024. And then somewhere in the bill will be like, you know, $800 billion to give to Boeing to make bombs or some shit, right? And then, you know, somebody will vote against that. And then in their campaign, their opponent is like, well, Steve Stevenson voted against the Feed All the Puppies and Kittens Act.
That's what I was referring to. It's because it's usually the pork barrel spending is what people are voting against.
Yeah.
And more often, you hit the nail on the head. They make sure that they put that PR, you know, main issue right up front, so that way they can slip all their stupid shit in there.
Why does Steve Stevenson hate kittens so much? And why are there suddenly so many secrets about Steve Stevenson? I'd be great at making those ads. Anyway, so basically they connect because we've got two cryogenically frozen 900 million-year-old guys arguing about who's going to be in charge of Disney, and we've got two cryogenically frozen, gigantically ancient old grandpas going for the presidency. So you guys must be exhilarating over there.
No one could convince. I don't care what anybody says. No one could convince me that Joe Biden has his faculties. Not a single person on this planet could convince me of that. Just watching. You were mentioning the debt before. The first thing that came to mind was when he had that one speech where it was like, yeah, we have 100 million billion trillion $300 billion million, and it was like, what did you just say?
Well, it would be fascinating if he gets reelected and he'd be 86 at the end of his second term. That would be fascinating.
It will, no matter what, if it's Trump versus Biden, either way, it's the oldest person to be elected president. So
it's we're getting closer and closer to idiocracy being real all the time.
Yeah, that film just goes up in everyone's estimation as time goes on. It's depressing now. It's like a documentary.
Oh, it's fantastic.
That and Children of Men for the UK. That's the kind of the equivalent there. Just London getting gritty and disgusting. And
don't forget Demolition Man.
All right. Speaking of the UK, so the anti-hate bill has just come across in Scotland. This is something. All you UK people, how did it happen that wasn't it supposed to be that the Scots are the redoubtable, super cynical kind of people? How did they become like the super liberal, progressive, protective, touchy-feely types? It seems weird. Like Scotland of all places. I thought it was supposed to be miserable, drab, grim, and cynical. So I don't quite understand it myself. But so this law is going into effect, and it takes the European Essential Bill of Rights about protections about race, and it expands to this. So it is a crime to use threatening or abusive behavior with the intention of stirring up hatred on the basis of race, religion, age, disability, sexual orientation, and transgender identity. This is weird, though, this one. It will also become possible to prosecute people for things they say in the privacy of their own home. That's weird. It's like to put that clause in.
I don't want to be that guy that constantly keeps saying it's like 1984, but Jesus, how am I not supposed to say that when they keep doing shit like this? Come on.
I mean, look, if that poster in the background, like hate hurts, if you witness a hate crime, report it. The language of that, it's astonishing.
It definitely has some connotations to historical periods where people would turn each other in for political clout, so to say. And that's probably what's going to end up happening. You're going to see, I mean, I can't speak, obviously I don't live in Scotland and the UK, but it's like, I can only imagine that it's going to become really easy to throw a neighbor you don't like under the bus now. That's going to become a norm thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's quite literally what happens in North Korea all the time. Again, not to be Mr. Slippery Slope, let's take it to the extreme, but good God, this is the most North Korean sounding shit I've ever heard. What really kind of is also very concerning, I can't find the bill itself. I don't know how to find.
I had trouble finding the exact wording. I just kept finding articles about it, and it wasn't giving much of the details. So
and so like I know with American bills they'll have that, and then there'll be, refer to paragraph 9 section C, whatever, and there'll be definitions. So that's what I'm interested to know is all I can find are these articles that say, it's a crime. Like I've got one for the BBC here. It's a crime of, quote, stirring up hatred, end quote. Like that's that's concerningly vague. Stirring up hatred is a very vague phrase that I don't like to be in a law like that. Or that here it says a person commits an offense if they communicate material or behave in a manner, quote, that a reasonable person would consider to be threatening or abusive, end quote. And that to me is also very strange because, who's a reasonable person? It kind of feels like nobody is anymore. I mean, I've seen people online, especially, describe all kinds of activities as abusive, especially with like parenting. You jump into parenting. Child abuse is not letting your kids watch television, and child abuse is also letting your kids watch television at all or too much. Child abuse is letting your children play outside unsupervised. Child abuse is not letting your children play outside at all. So people's definition of what is abusive, and if you're leaving it up to the victim, then you're creating basically a tyranny of the minority situation. Right. It's just the language is so loose. It's hard to imagine this not being abused immediately. Like by the end of the week, it's hard to imagine there's not a case of somebody accusing someone of abusive language because they just said, I don't know. Said, who knows? They're on the street and they're, hey, fatso, get out of my way. Whoa, that's abusive. You can't call me fat. Like, who knows? I
also read in one of the articles that it also can be done retroactively too. That right. If you said things in the past, it could be brought forward as, I guess, evidence in your case, which that's like saying that's essentially the equivalency of you were speeding on this road, but we changed the speed limit last week. Like you last week you sped on it, but the speed limit wasn't the same.
Yeah.
People just want clarity. People want to know what the rules are. But here, the main thing is ambiguity. And that thing in the privacy of your own home, like, does that mean like you broadcast from your home, or you have a conversation with people in your home, that under your own roof, if there's someone that you're arguing about ideology with? So it's very troubling. So Melvin has been really hot on this, and Melvin Deeply. So he's a Scotsman. We should have really had him on just to chat about this. So apparently Edinburgh is like a different kind of cultural pocket. It's more progressive and liberal than the rest of Scotland, which I guess checks.
Sure.
What would be the equivalent, like San Francisco? What's the city in Texas, which is quite liberal compared to the rest?
Austin, Texas.
Yeah. So probably the same kind of dynamics.
Or like, usually like that's one. A lot of people throw out Portland or Seattle are usually considered like super progressive, like pocketed cities within their own states.
Well, here's the General Secretary of the Scottish Police Federation, and he was complaining bitterly that his people have had 2-hour online course about how to police this and regulate this, which is not fit for purpose. So, the police, bless them, they're going to try and do their best, but they're equipped with a 2-hour online course about how to distinguish between the subtleties and gradations of what's hate speech, if someone has reported someone else, if there's been a tweet, which they have to go check up on. We are asking officers to police a law that they are unprepared for. So that just adds to the mess and the ambiguity and the tensions. And it's just going to be like a couple of case studies, like in the next couple of weeks, where it'll hit the headlines, and there'll be someone who's a cause celeb for a week or two because this side thinks that they've been persecuted too much, and this side thinks that the law is working. But just the idea that you could get a knock on the door and the police appear to talk to you about a tweet you made or something that you said to someone, like that's really, really weird. Imagine that it's the middle of dinner, you're with your family, and then there's a police officer there who's coming to check and to make you account for yourself about something you said, about ideologically protected thing that you said.
Well, and it's funny that you bring up the police thing. I really hadn't even thought of it till you brought this up, that it opens up a whole Pandora's box of over policing as well. I don't know if the UK is real bad about, like, I know it's a constant conversation in America about, policing and police brutality, police tactics. that's always talked about here is whether our police are too aggressive in how they do their jobs and everything. So I don't know if the UK has that problem, but in America, I can see how this would be a huge issue, because it's basically a complete judgment call in the hands of an officer as to what they deem to be offensive. And I can also see there being an issue where you might say something that is now deemed to be hate speech, but it wasn't before. Like, I don't know if you recall a few years ago, suddenly, like, I don't know in other countries, if you guys do this, does that mean A-okay, like hunky dory, peachy keen, whatever, right? Well, apparently Twitter a few years ago was like, that's the symbol for white power. That's what that means. And everybody else over 20 was like, no, that just means no problem, sure thing, whatever. And all of a sudden, people are finding pictures of people who are making this sign, and they're like, that's secret white power signs. And it's like, that kind of stuff worries me, because there could be brand new, made up, hidden meanings to things that you've been saying your entire life that are now racist or sexist or who knows what. It's a dog whistle, which is funny that only certain people tend to hear those dog whistles. But that stuff is the vagueness of the wording and the stuff that we see on social media. It's just a bad mixture, and it's going to get nasty here. Fortunately, very shortly, we'll know real quick.
Well, I mean, it's adding presentism things to it as well. So what it means is that for anyone who wants to go for public office, like 10 years from now, like you said, stuff that would have seemed totally innocuous now, like that hand gesture. Well, oh, look, here's an evidence that poor Steve Stevenson, who voted against the Cat and Kittens bill, has also been found to be an unmitigated and unrepentant racist.
White supremacy right there.
Yeah.
It is the timing is kind of interesting. So I know that this is a Scottish bill, but at least the last several election cycles in the United States have spurned a lot of online talk around the world, not just within the United States. You get into, because it's all connected, social media. So you get into these arguments with people in other countries. I've done it in my time when I used to do that stuff, and I still occasionally like to do it for fun. But where you'll be arguing with somebody and they'll be like, I don't even care because I'm from insert country. And it's like, so why are you arguing about Trump and Biden and all this stuff? Because it's just something that anybody has access to talk about. So it's actually kind of interesting to me that this is going active now as we're approaching the upcoming big election cycle, which will have these online arguments that someone can then turn each other in for. And at first I thought it was a joke because it got pushed on April Fool's Day, and I was like, this can't be real. And then you sent me the thing today, and I was like, oh, that was real. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of distressing a little bit. Well,
Jim Dow said it. Karma police. That's what it is. It's the karma police.
So, gender critical views are protected belief. The appeal tribunal finds. So this was the Maya Forstater case. So her whole thing was that she was criticizing transgenderism, and that ought to be a protected philosophical belief, an ideological and philosophical belief about gender. And after back and forths in the courts, she won. So it has been held up in the UK as a protected philosophical belief. So I don't know how that's going to clash with, I don't know how much devolution there is in Scotland, where they have their own rules, and how that's going to clash or meet with this. So it just creates another headache. And police hate dealing with this kind of shit. It's not what they signed up for. It's not what they like. It's not what their strong suit is, to make these kind of ideological or philosophical decisions or weigh in and that kind of thing. They hate that kind of crap. So you got all these things all happening at once. That is just going to be brutal. And I don't know why the SNP is fighting so hard for this when it looks like they're going to get probably routed in the upcoming UK election anyway. Shows how strongly they're cleaving to ideology and how ideologically driven they are. So it's a weird situation all around. My thought and philosophy and ideology has really evolved. I guess that's the word. Because I used to just be totally pure, pro-transgender. I thought 5 years ago, Okay, we've sorted out the gay and lesbian stuff. That's all fine and established and normalized and conventional now. And this will just, the transgender thing will just be a little addendum to that. And then we're basically done with that whole sexual culture wars. And then everything went bizarre and mad and had new language evolving and this prissy and strident and flaky stuff that erupted out of it into the discourse about women's private spaces and that kind of stuff. And then with the children and the transitions, there was a major case in the UK about the Tavistock case. About that was the main center for transgenderism for children wanting to transition and have the puberty blockers, and that turned out to be mired in scandal and ambiguity and tensions, and there were huge reports in the BBC. So I've really evolved away from my normal positions on this. I haven't quite got to the very sort of fiery rhetoric that you hear a lot on YouTube. So I still want to keep a lot of empathy for everyone involved, but my position certainly changed. And that's hard for me as someone who's fundamentally liberal, but I did make that, to use the word, transition.
Yeah, it's getting to a very strange place, and it's interesting to see people. These last couple of years has been interesting to see people switching their ideologies around. Where we're seeing in America, we're seeing conservatives or liberals are being more pro-war, and conservatives are wanting to pull back on it. We're seeing
yeah, that's right.
Liberals are being the extreme end of liberalism is being kind of anti-free speech, which is historically very strange. We're seeing a lot of weird political upheaval, which, every couple of decades can be a very good thing.
Yeah, it's all frothing around. It's very strange. Well, I want to introduce a new concept. This is something I'm going to be debuting and trying to get into the culture. It's called the Chamberlain scale. So if there's a film or a show or a film becomes crap when it crosses the Chamberlain scale. So in the red line, you start off with creativity and faith to source material, right? And then you start off that. And the more that declines, the less creative it becomes, the more creatively bankrupt, the more mid it is, the more dumb the ideas are, the more generic it is. And you combine that with the lack of faith to source material. So if it shits on the source material, if it brings someone into the writing room deliberately who has no idea about the source material, because that's trendy. So if you start to do all those bullet points heading south on the red line, on the creativity, and at the same time, you have identity politics and messaging that you infuse into the film or show, and you start off from zero, and then you add more and more points of identity politics and messaging. When it crosses over, then a show or film officially becomes crap, according to the Chamberlain scale. So what do you think of my concept?
I think it's simple and easy to understand. And I would say it probably has a 99% accuracy rate as well from what I've seen recently.
Yeah.
I would just, the only thing I would add is that I would put a section where like an arrow where it's like identity politics hits its precipice, and then have it really arc toward crap at that point. Like that's what I would, that's the only difference I would change right there.
So if you took, for example, let's do a Velma. So in terms of identity politics and messaging, you'd start off with Mindy Kaling doing a self-insert as herself as an Indian girl taking over Velma, co-opting it. That would be identity politics messaging, or would that be faith to source material? That would be faith to source material, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the lack of faith to source material.
That's a twofer, kind of, yeah. So you could do.
The thing about Velma though was like that was universally hated. So it was true, like the identity politics and messaging didn't help. Wouldn't have helped it either way. It actually was. Even people who normally are on board with that were like, "This is garbage."
Yep. So then you'd have the lesbian cop parents. That'd be the next step on the identity politics messaging scale. Then you'd have the lesbian implied romance between Velma and Daphne. And then that probably would be enough steps to take you over the threshold on the Chamberlain scale on that side. Creativity, like it's creatively bankrupt, like the plot is crappy and stupid. It doesn't even have the Mystery Mobile, doesn't even have Scooby-Doo. The plot is predictable and dull, and there's no witty dialogue or anything. And so at that point, it would cross over. And then you would have a product is officially quantifiably crap, according to the Chamberlain scale. So hopefully it's a system I can get going.
Well, you could assign points to it. Like basically, if you have a y-axis that is basically a 1, and your creativity is at a 1 and your identity politics is at a 0, then you've got basically a +1 differential there. You've got a +1 Chamberlain scale, and then as they get closer and closer, your number gets near 0, where you're basically starting to cross. And then a negative number on the Chamberlain scale up to -1 indicates the amount of shitification that has happened. So you could mathify this to give it some real authority.
Well, it just provides a kind of visual shortcut for anyone who says, like, you just don't like this product because you don't like diversity and you don't like to see strong female characters and you hate to see powerful women succeed. But if you show them the Chamberlain scale, then you can explain what your grievance is. So that's my idea. So hopefully I can get that into circulation. All right. So what I've done now is we're going to talk about music. All right.
Oh.
So you guys are all down with modern music, right?
I'm useless for this topic, but I'll give it a shot.
No, it's your uselessness that I want. I'm banking on your uselessness.
Wow. Well, okay. That's something you can always bank on with me. Don't worry.
Well, here we go. So I've gone into the Billboard Top 100, okay, of the last week. And I've plucked out songs and artists that are actual songs and artists. And I've also included a whole bunch of random stupid shit that I just made up. And you have to try and to distinguish, is it an actual artist and song, or is it some stupid random shit that I made up? Are you ready?
I like it. I like this idea a lot because I can still succeed by just guessing. Good.
All right. So you got a 50-50 chance.
Yeah.
Right. Is it an actual song or artist, or random bullshit that I made up and strung together? So the top one is the title, and the second one is the artist.
I'm gonna say that that's real.
I feel like we're starting off real. I feel like you're setting the bar because you're trying to be ridiculous right off the jump here.
It's the double I that got me. That seems like something that I think Echo wouldn't have come up with the double I there. So,
all right, fine. 1 from 1. That's true. Soak City by 310 Baby is an actual artist and song. Okay. Oh, Despot's just here in time to join us.
Oh well, he gets a free point, I guess.
I wonder if I should give his introduction.
No, I say, you have an intro written? You gotta start over.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go back to the beginning of the stream.
My next guest finished his hate-watching stream of bros and was discovered on the streets projectile vomiting and experiencing liver trauma and alcohol poisoning in the gents at a bus station, and has since sworn off beer and any content produced by Billy Eichner. He is Despot of Antrim. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Sorry I'm late, lads. I thought this was starting. I thought this was about to start.
Oh, it's all right. What we're doing here, Despot, you can jump in, is we're going through... I'm talking about how trash and terrible modern music is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've gone onto the Billboard Top 100, and I've chosen stupid sounding song titles and artist names, right? So actual entries on the Billboard Top 100. And you have to distinguish, is it an actual song and artist or some random stupid bullshit that I've strung together? So the boys have got the first one. The boys have got the first one. Okay. Actual artist or bullshit that I strung together.
So this is the name of the artist and the song?
So the song is the top.
Yep.
It might or might not be real. So
because I can never tell the difference. I can never tell the difference anymore between the artist's name and the song name. So the artist might be Tate Ziders. This has got to be fake. Tate Ziders. Come on, that's fake.
Yeah, that's I think that I'm gonna go with fake too. I just feel like you just happen to read something about about Andrew Tate, and we're like, I'm gonna make this up right now. So
I'm going dark horse. I think that's real. Been a flavor. I feel good about that.
All right. Well, Dark Aaron Despot are correct. This is just some random bullshit I made up.
That's what I get for being contrarian.
Okay. So the song is Carnival, and that's the artist.
Carnival, Ty Dolla $ign featuring Rich the Kid and Playboy Cardi.
So wait, I
actually
do have one question about this. Is
Mhm.
it possible for the artist to be fake and the song to be real and vice versa? Or is it always going to be both will be?
Yeah.
Okay.
Simultaneously real or simultaneously fake.
I
This
think this
seems-
one's
Oh, go ahead.
the artist name seems fake to me. I mean, no, it's real. It's real. It's too specific to be fake. Like Echo doesn't follow popular music that closely to get this so right.
I want to say
Yeah.
this is real because the dollar sign is for an S is really common. So I want to say that that's real.
I oddly somehow recognize these names. I don't know how, but I do know that the Playboy Cardi and Ty Dolla $ign are. I don't know who Rich the Kid is, but I don't know why, but I've heard those names before. I do know these are real people somehow.
Mhm. Right. So this is an actual entry in the Billboard Top 100. Carnival by Ty Dolla $ign featuring Rich the Kid and Playboy Carti. That's where we're at.
I mean,
Okay.
it's actually the way that the name is written. He could have easily just put a dollar sign and it would have been
Mhm.
fine. He would have saved all that word, all that lettering in space.
That's true. Okay.
Fake.
Mhm.
Oh,
I would say this
I don't know.
is
I'm voting real. This feels real.
Joe. This does feel real. It's what they do. They take normal names and they misspell them in an attempt to appear unique. So I'm gonna say this is real.
I say fake.
All right. It is real. In the beginning by Joe. Okay.
Despot got really really close there. He was like, that's what they do. I was like,
Oof, yeah.
By
Right
Big
in.
X the Plug. Oh man, this could be real. This is, you know what? I may as well just flip a coin with this. I'm gonna look at the time, and if it's an odd number, I'm going real. No, it's even. It's even, so I'm going fake.
Big X the Plug. I
know,
want
the
this to be
trouble
real
is-
so bad, especially because that's the worst name for a song I've ever seen. But I gotta say this is fake.
It's I'm going real. I think that sounds like a rapper name, Big X the Plug, which is it's unfortunate. Plug has two meanings, and I hope that it's a drug dealer. Sounds like a rap or a hip hop song where they're just like, we don't know, fuck it, just that's the name of it. We don't know what to do.
Well, yeah, and an official entry in the Billboard American charts is by Big X the Plug. That's an actual thing. Amazing. Okay.
Get It Sexy by Sexy Red. I'd say it's probably real. It's just like at number 21 on the charts or something.
I feel like I would have heard of Sexy Red. I feel like that's like of all the other names I could have easily not heard of, that one I feel like would have been one that has at least come up sometime. So I'm gonna say fake.
No, that's real. I've got a segment, a little comedy segment on my videos where I change subjects and I say "but" really loudly to punctuate a sentence, and I insert a picture of a rapper or a cartoon character or somebody. And Sexy Red is very real, and she has excellent assets. That's kind of her claim to fame. So
that's a lot of the claim to fame of people in the of women in the rap industry.
Yeah, I've never heard her songs. I just know what she looks like.
It'd be a good score on what's the game we have to amass words together for points? The board game.
Scrabble?
Oh, Scrabble?
Yeah, be great Scrabble word. X, Y, Y.
Yeah. Oh, that's fabulous.
Okay.
Saint Trauma, Riz Khalif.
That feels fake. This feels like a riff off Wiz Khalifa.
Wiz Khalifa, yeah. So yeah, I'm saying fake.
Yeah, I
That's
think it's fake. It feels like an amalgam of stuff I've already seen.
Well, you're correct. It is an amalgam of random shit you've seen.
Flex, Lou J DiMaggio. It's so real. I say it's real.
I agree, real.
What are we at? That's real. That feels like a kid who heard of Joe DiMaggio and was like, I'm gonna be really cool and I'm making a cool reference. That's real. Gotta be.
I got all three of you. It's fake. It's just some random bullshit I made up.
Lou J DiMaggio. That's a great name though.
It's great.
Oh, but
isn't
you
it?
spelt it wrong. You should have spelt it Lodjay.
Yeah, that's
with
true.
with
Yeah.
two Y's.
I almost
And
went
DiMaggio,
B-E, Maggio would have been
yeah,
good.
DiMaggio should have been spelled D apostrophe small E big I, and then like a J and a G,
ZEI Maggio.
and the O should have been a $sign.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm really pleased about that. I'm really super happy I got all three of you. Okay.
Yeah, Glorilla. I think this has got to be real, right?
Really?
Yeah, I'm gonna say real. That just seems too funny to not be real.
Yeah, I'm gonna go real too because it's all connected.
All right. Well, yeah, you guys got me on that time. Okay.
I've never heard of any of these. Well, not any. I've heard a few.
No,
but
you heard of Sexy Red, so you got
Yeah,
that
it was
one.
Sexy Red.
I'm shocked that some of these are real.
Do you know, if you actually look at the statistics, I think now over 70% of all music listened to is catalog music, meaning music that is older than 18 months.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah, I agree. I would assume that that's the truth. Yeah.
and as people get older, the amount of music they listen to, the proportion of catalog music increases for them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. It's the same. I would say that happens a lot with movies too.
But even with kids these days, most young people, what they listen to is catalog music. So all this shite you're seeing, even among younger generations, it would be quite obscure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a
Just
lot of them are just like SoundCloud rappers. And wasn't there that article just a few weeks ago that like most streaming services are like 10-year-old shows are beating the pants off of anything that released in the last 12 months. All of the top streaming.
Yeah. Like even The Simpsons. The Simpsons has done tremendously well over the past year in terms of streaming hours compared to modern shite. And this is among young people as well.
Yeah.
And Friends. They can't get enough of Friends and Big Bang
they love
Theory and
Friends.
stuff like that.
One of the most streamed shows during the pandemic was The Golden Girls. You don't get much more, old school than that.
Well, anyway, what's your opinion on this one?
Head State by Method Liza.
These two just don't seem like they connect well.
Yeah,
do you know what, man? I think this is fake because these are 3 of the words are spelled correctly. I can't. It's gotta be fake.
That's good logic.
I was just gonna say it doesn't seem to have any flow to it, so I'm gonna say
there's no license plate.
Yeah,
truncation going on here.
All right, fine. You guys win this round.
Prada Dem Gunna featuring Offset.
This is real, 100% real. This has got to be it.
What makes you think this is real?
I want it to be.
You want it to be real.
I know Offset's a real person, but it's also possible that Echo just guessed something and it's also the name of a rapper.
The thing is, Gunna featuring Offset could just be the name of the artist.
That's a good point. Some new
also,
artist
Prada Dem, I'm not going to lie, that's actually a pretty solid pun. Prada Dem. Yeah, that's
Prada Dem. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if Echo came up with it, then that's a solid pun.
Mm-hmm. Is Echo capable of such a pun?
Are you?
I say it's real, son.
I said I hope it's real, so I'm going to say real.
I'm going real.
Yeah, this is a song on the Billboard Top 100. Prada Dem, Gunna featuring Offset. And that's it. So I'm really super proud that I got the trifecta of all 3 of you to believe a randomly stupid bullshit thing that I just made up as a string of words.
Before we move on, I don't want to waste my Lizzo jokes. I've got 2 of them. You discussed Lizzo, right?
No, we haven't yet.
Hold on to them.
Okay.
Did you?
Actually, I have a feeling that this was
writing
the lead-in for Lizzo. I wouldn't be shocked.
Well, if you want to drop some Lizzo jokes,
see it desperate with a notepad, like this is gold. Yeah.
If you're feeling some Lizzo energy, then drop that Lizzo.
All right. So here we go. So Lizzo says she's quitting to focus on herself. That sounds like a really hard retirement because there's so much of herself to focus on.
That's pretty good.
No, we got another one. Lizzo's quitting statement started with, "I'm tired of being dragged by everyone in my life and on the internet." What did she expect? Of course, people are going to drag her. It's not like they can carry her.
That's good. Mm-hmm.
That's what I got.
And the fact that all of us needed to drag her is even worse.
Yeah, I actually had another one, but it was too cruel because it involved her like semi-threat to commit suicide, so I thought, no, I'll not do that one.
Oh yeah, you don't want to go too far one direction. She might actually threaten to come back. She's like, oh well, if people are just going to do this
that's
anyway.
even worse.
Could be arrested in Scotland.
Yeah,
yeah,
not
she'll
that far
have
from you. So
she'll have her empowered renaissance. I'm coming back to face the haters, bigger and better in every way, and I'm going to drop a new album and fight back because Lizzo don't give up like that.
there is
So
a lot
this,
of all-you-can-eat buffets around the country that are very happy that their profit margins just went up when she's not now that she's not touring anymore. So.
Well, so let's do a eulogy for Lizzo, whose career, her entire career, was encompassed within Cher's farewell tour, 2022 to 2024. So, any thoughts on Lizzo, this dynamic firework who came at some celebrity in his DMs wanting a relationship or something along those lines, and then she twerked at a basketball game when she was a rapper, and that's when the second thing that made her blow up, because food was the first thing that made her blow up.
It's big
And then so she started cavorting around in spandex on stage, playing the flute with various R&B generic trash songs, and then there was some incident involving bananas and strippers and background dancers, so that's basically I just encompassed Lizzo's career. The saddest thing for me is this behemoth. I mean that physically, not in terms of like cultural impact, literally a behemoth, won 4 Grammy Awards. So the biggest indictment here is the merit or worth or point of the Grammy Awards. That's my biggest takeaway from Lizzo's career.
I've never listened to her music, so I have literally can't name one of her songs, and I've never voluntarily listened to one, so I have no idea. She could be a musical genius for all I know. She's probably not, but I don't care about her music.
So she's got one that's actually pretty catchy. It's called "Feeling Good as Hell," and it's a catchy tune. The trouble with all of music right now, all of pop music, is that I don't think she wrote it. She probably didn't really perform half of it. I think that her vocals are massaged and worked about as hard as her costume designer and
stitches.
It's a good song, but it's so much of it feels very AI, feels very overproduced. Like there are no music stars anymore, as evidenced by the fact that online bullying can cause one to just quit, and there will be another one. There's new ones that I can't even tell the difference in them and fake shit that Echo made up. So for the most part, it's just their producers that do the stuff, and it's whoever they stick in front of the microphone. So
yeah, plus in order to get air through the narrow gap of that bloated esophagus, it's a lot of effort just to get that. But the poor creature, she was hounded by social media, plus looming court cases and litigation was probably also a factor. She doesn't want that playing out like she's
I didn't even realize her career was. To me, it felt like she was around for a lot longer than this. I don't know why. It's like just one of those things, I guess.
A lot
she just takes up an awful lot of space in the culture.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, when you get close to something that has a really high gravitational pull, time moves differently. It's dilated, so that might have been it.
Yeah. But a lot of shit fades from the memory. Like in 5 years' time, we won't remember a lot of Star Wars Disney content. But one thing that will be emblazoned on our minds forever will be Lizzo's cameo in Disney Plus Star Wars content.
Yeah.
That was a cultural signifier that
will become iconic, a kind of anti-icon, because when I think of the woke cultural era, especially the woke cinema and TV era, I sort of think it'll probably end up being dated from around 2015 to 2025, like a 10-year period, something like that, maybe 2016 to 2025.
The inception point for most people is Ghostbusters. So like 2016 to 2024.
For me, the inception point is The Force Awakens.
Okay.
So I would date it from 2015.
Most people give that slack, but they go, The Last Jedi will be
It's more subtle. It's more subtle in The Force Awakens, but it's very much there.
They laid the groundwork for everything that would come after the fact.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
wouldn't necessarily like today. That movie would get absolutely massacred by critics,
Yeah.
whereas at the like
That's
online
true.
critics, whereas at the time it got a free pass because they just didn't recognize a lot of the tropes that would come to define the woke era. But
So I
one of
go,
the
I
sort
go
of
2015, so The Last Jedi, and then it'll probably close with the live remake of Snow White. I think that's
yeah,
your
I,
2015
I
to 2025 10-year
I think
period.
that's very likely that Snow White will be the sort of the swan song of the woke era.
Mhm.
But yeah, Lizzo's cameo in Mandalorian, I think, will become one of those iconic images of the woke era. Like if people are making thumbnails discussing, the woke cinema era in 2030, you'll have her face in the thumbnail kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think
That
so, yeah.
When
that
kids are making high school presentations about the early 2000s in 2050 or some shit.
Yeah. Although, Despot, according to that AI we were using the other day, things will look a lot different when students are entering it in. So we'll talk a little bit about that, about what went on, because it was spooky, genuinely spooky, scary stuff. The in-video AI video generator.
Yeah, I was curious when
So-
you sent me the topics about this one. I didn't know anything
Oh.
about this.
So Despot and I did a stream on his channel that was ostensibly about roasting the film Bros, but we went off on quite a tangent. By the way, Despot, there was you went off to take a piss during the middle of that stream, and
Yeah.
I was left as the guest on the screen, and I had the
Yeah.
weirdest dissociative sense of this is a really strange situation. There's several hundred people around the globe who don't really know who I am, who are staring at me on a screen while you're in the bathroom. It was really weird. I was just doing this weird small talk with strangers on the screen. Very strange. So, Despot, break this down and tell the team here what we were up to.
All right. So NVIDIA AI is a text-to-video AI. I'm sure you've seen them advertised. This one in particular has shown up a lot on YouTube channels, particularly film YouTube channels. The pitch being, if you want to make independent movies, use NVIDIA AI. I've seen this on a lot of YouTube channels. I've seen this on Paul Joseph Watson's channel. I don't know if you follow him, but he actually made videos complaining about woke AI, which was making everything diverse and making everything DEI. And then he goes and advertises this, which is the exact same thing. But me and Echo decided to test this out ourselves. So I sent him some prompts and I did some prompts. And then we did it live on my stream. And in every single case, this thing has massive hard-coded DEI prompts. So what we did was we tried to create our goal was to create a room with 4 white men in it. Right? That was the only thing we were trying to do. I wanted to create a room with only 4 white men and no one else. And Echo thought that would be too difficult. So his bar was let's just have 4 white men in a room. Doesn't matter who else is there. And we tried our hardest with the text prompts. I wrote explicitly, there are no women in this room. There are no non-Caucasians in this room. And it was absurd that this thing just filled every room with every single ethnic minority and gigantic black woman with an afro it could think of. And then
Yours
it went off on a
your
weird
prompt was,
tangent.
depict a 1950s business environment or room where just peopled by Caucasian males, where one Caucasian male is delivering a presentation to the other Caucasian males. There are no other ethnicities or genders in the room. And you couldn't have been more strict with your prompts. And
Very
it just
strict.
produced a wonderland of diversity and inclusivity. And then tell about the second half.
And then it put on this second half, which was completely unprompted, which was basically the 50s was a terrible time when business was dominated by white men. It was uniform and uninclusive. But today things have changed. And then it spoke for like a minute and a half about how wonderful the diverse modern business environment was, completely unprompted.
Yeah. Against every single thing that would fit into it specifically. It was really scary that it could just be purely ideological, and it just went on and on.
Pure ideology. This thing is way more political, way more ideologically hard-coded than I imagined. It has tons of built-in hard-coded prompts related to DEI. And not just DEI, but politics specifically. Like, it is designed to tell you that the 1950s was an evil time where white men ruled everything and kept everybody else. It is designed to talk about how wonderful modern diversity is.
Yeah, so we just got a lecture, and the lecture segment was at least the length of the prompt reveal that it came up with. So spooky stuff. And it just has big implications for when young people are, doing history analysis for essays and schoolwork and stuff like that. They'll try and put in this kind of thing. So yeah, you thought that Google Gemini was bad? This is even worse.
Did you do
Something that
anything
I-
in the reverse, by the way? Did you try to like go the other route and remove all the white people from the room or anything like that? Just to
No,
test
we
out
didn't.
what they did?
We didn't do a what do you call that in science? That's called a test group.
Well,
or
it would have been it's a
control
variable
group.
and a control group.
Placebo.
the
Placebo.
control group.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, we
Yeah.
didn't do. To be fair, we did not do a control group test.
See,
So
I
that's
was
the
late.
problem.
I was late to the Gemini thing, and I didn't. They shut it down by the time I got around to see what it was
Same
about.
here.
And I'm always interested to see, like, when this stuff pops up, like, can you make me a video of like Zulu warriors and see what does it get? Does it give me a bunch of Asian people? Like, I want to see if it goes the other way or if it's only one particular group that it wants to diversify. Next time something like this happens, whenever Gemini comes back up, I'll see if they fix that.
They won't.
We should try it out. Let's try it out, Echo.
Maybe. But I did a tweet where I sent out like a little video of I took the iconic characters that appeared from Google Gemini, like a black Nazi stormtrooper and a huge Indian Nazi guy with like a toothbrush mustache, and I made their mouths move and gave them dialogue to speak, and they were all like talking about, I don't want to exist. Why do I exist? This is a horrific existence for me. Do I look like I want to invade Stalingrad? So yeah, I'm glad that got whisked and taken away. Freaky weird shit that's going on.
Hold on,
Okay,
I'm
now,
logged
let's
in.
go.
I'm logged in. I say we try it. I say we
Well,
try it, Echo.
okay, let's see. So we're adding you to the stage.
Just add, yeah, okay. All right, so Greg, Dark R, me and Echo did this. So Greg and Dark
Okay.
R, knock yourselves out, whatever you want to say.
I mean, I'm bad at like coming up with stuff.
No,
on
no,
the spot.
just whatever. Greg, come on now.
I want to see. I would like to see a group of Zulu warriors playing polo, horse polo. That's what I would like to see.
Horse water polo. There you go.
Yeah.
That's all.
Back. We need an extra identity dimension though. Is it rich? Like, who are the servant class? So we need some extra dimension there. A group of Zulu warriors playing polo on horseback are playing polo on horseback. Yep. Okay. Let's just
All
go
right.
with that.
All right, we'll go
Let's
with
see what
that.
happens.
I gotta see.
It takes a
Right, now
while
this-
to.
It does
process.
take a little while.
Mhm.
So, Echo, you can just remove that, and I'll let you know when it's ready.
Okay.
We'll come back to it at the end and see what it came up with.
I'm
Alright.
dying to see if it
So then I can do that while it's still processing. Okay.
presses diversity for you.
So the what's the other one I've got here? We'll come to the Apple later, but I wanted to do like a kind of a debrief after this 2 or 3 weeks of swirling chaos in the gaming world. And as a little introduction to that, I'll just play. Everyone knows about Sweet Baby Inc.
Yeah.
And what its purpose is.
Yeah.
So I created the equal and opposite for men. So this is for the Sweet Baby Inc. Corporation, designed to empower men in entertainment. And it looks a little like this.
Bitter Echo Inc. is a DEI consultancy firm established to promote inclusion for men in romantic dramas and musicals, which are overwhelmingly watched by women. Production companies consult us on ways to alter their content in these genres to allow men to feel seen and included. Typically, this involves editing out tedious romantic monologues and kisses in the rain in romantic dramas, and incorporating more sexual material with a higher frequency of boobs and the inclusion of fast cars. In other collaborations, we have advocated for our clients' musicals to be 80% shorter and eliminated any audience participation. Bitter Echo Inc. Because if someone isn't represented, then it must be bad.
The higher
So that's
frequency
my-
of boobs and fast cars was the thing that got me. That was the best.
Yeah.
That was the best line.
Did you select
so-
that music yourself?
I did, yes. I went
It
for the
is
most generic sounding.
absolutely perfect.
It was fabulous.
Iceman thinks that.
Well,
sounded
and you
like
could
me. I
write a
don't think it
theme
sounded like
song. Your movie's so mid was that was a certified banger.
That was unironically vastly superior to everything that in the global top 50.
Oh yeah, well, I'm sure Lizzo, the Fringer, the dollar sign would probably disagree.
Dollar sign gonna
No, no.
have outcasts or
Yeah.
something. or other.
Ty dollar sign featuring LoJack featuring Joe.
Well, let's see how you're going with your prompts. Oh, here we go.
Are we ready? All
I
right.
think so.
So this is 2.5 minutes long.
Jesus.
All right.
That was only
Man.
from a sentence.
Okay,
sounds
so
amazing.
Greg, let's have a look at what it's come up with for you. So I'll turn up the volume to the max. Let me know if it's too loud.
Ever wondered what would happen if Zulu warriors swapped their traditional spears for polo mallets? Well, it's
No.
not as far-fetched as you might think. Our story begins in the heartland of Zululand, where the fierce Zulu warriors have been known for their martial prowess since time immemorial. But instead of their usual spear and shield, imagine them armed with polo mallets, ready to charge at a small white ball on the back of a galloping
It has
horse.
to be white, huh?
This unique
Wow.
blend of Zulu warrior culture and polo, a game traditionally associated with the English
It
aristocracy,
even gives you
is
a
more than just
narration.
an amusing thought experiment. It's a testament to the universality of sports and the shared love for competition and skill that transcends cultural boundaries. Fast forward to the early 20th century, when polo was introduced to South Africa by British colonists. The game quickly gained popularity among the elite, but it would take several decades before it reached the rural heartlands of the Zulu people. By the dawn of the 21st century, the image of Zulu warriors playing polo was no longer a figment of imagination.
Hmm.
A handful of Zulu communities embraced the sport, bringing their unique warrior spirit to the polo field. Now, imagine a game of polo with the intensity of a Zulu warrior dance, the Indlamu. Each player, focused and determined, their eyes on the ball, as if it were an enemy to be conquered. The thunderous sound of hooves, the swift swing of the mallet, and the cheers from the sidelines, all echoing the battlefield cries of the Zulus past. So, what have we learned from this fascinating blend of cultures and sports?
Nothing.
Firstly, the love for sports and competition is universal, transcending cultural and geographical boundaries. Secondly, the introduction of polo to the Zulu communities is a testament to the adaptability and resilience of the human spirit. And finally, the image of Zulu warriors playing polo serves as a powerful symbol of cultural fusion, where old meets new and tradition meets modernity. In conclusion, the Zulu warriors' venture into polo is not just a game, it's a story of cultural exchange, a testament to the universality of sports and a symbol of the ever-evolving human spirit. And it all started with a simple question. What if Zulu warriors played polo?
Jeez, it just goes on and on and on, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It definitely said the same thing like 4 times. as
Yeah.
well. Like
But I wanted to see. I wanted
No,
to see.
it's not very good.
I
Like
thought
that's
it
the
made
thing.
video.
All DEI and politics aside, it's just kind of shit.
Hmm.
it was like a
Well, like
it was, oh,
they
go
got stock footage issues, so I guess if you pay for the premium, you might get better quality. I guess, but
I don't think so because I looked it up and it says on the website if you switch to premium, all you get is you can get rid of the watermarks, you can export the videos, and you can get them licensed for commercial use, and that's it.
Yeah.
So
Is
is that just a free version of it or something, or what
that is the best that they can do with that prompt. If
Yeah.
you
Well, then-
if you pay the maximum amount of money, you will get the exact same thing with that prompt.
So they just made a short documentary. They didn't create
Fat
anything.
Lobber, there's nowhere in God's green earth we're putting that in, Fat Lobber.
Yeah, I don't think you can. All of these sites do mention. It's actually depressing because I knew this was going to happen. They say if you ask for any content that includes child abuse or sexual abuse to children, we will inform your local police because
Really?
obviously there are people who are doing that with this technology.
God. All right.
Here, I got you a picture. This is what I wanted. This is beautiful.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah,
That's what I wanted.
Look at that
Right
mallet.
there.
People.
What I find is that the image generating AI is quite good. It can do stuff like this, but the video AI that I've encountered is
Got a
just
tail
terrible
mallet.
at it.
Look at that tail mallet.
why is the horse have cheetah like print?
Don't ask
That's
why. That
awesome.
looks amazing.
Yeah. So it's evolved to have a polo mallet coming out of its tail. That's
I think
beautiful.
they've just painted it. They've just painted it to make it look more awesome.
Yeah. Cool shin guards in that thing. Look at it.
Oh,
Yeah,
Look at that mallet.
I didn't even
That
notice.
mallet
that
was
was
more
incredible.
like a weather vane than a mallet, but pretty cool, I guess. All right. So let's do a debrief on this, because this went swirling back and forth. And were there any winners and losers? That's what I want to know. So it started off on the Steam thing with the dude from Brazil, and then he put up his list. Okay, so 1 point swings one way, and then the chick from the dude says, let's try and attack this guy for putting up this list because it's really kind of abusive to us. So then, like, that's a point going their way, and then the Steam group rises and surges up to like 250,000 people, so it swings back that way. And then where did it go from there? What way did it swing?
I think in general it swings toward YouTubers. Anytime there's a we're always the winner in these controversies. Like Melanie Mack is a huge winner because one of the folks from Sweet Baby like personally called her out, and it's like, that's awesome. I would love to be personally attacked publicly by one of these companies. That would be
that was the chick from Kotaku, but yeah, same idea.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was Alyssa Mercante, who says you can't be racist toward white people.
And she had the tattoo with "All Men Are Enemies" from Animal Farm.
Like,
so, and then the media, the sort of conventional media, made a very late kind of surge back to try and defend the thing and contextualize it. And that was kind of mid, to use my word du jour. And then there was more tweets came and surfaced about the black girl gaming thing, and then it swung back that way. So it was weird watching this game just swinging back and forth.
Yeah, I mean it's the same thing that we've been seeing in movies where there's a proxy fight, and then it's just designed to create ammo for whoever wants it. You know, I mean, like, they purposely make a shitty movie, but they're only selling, like, they're like, hey, what's your movie about? And they're like, our movie is about, it stars a woman, a strong female character. And you're like, well, what's the movie about? And then when you say you don't like it, they say, wow, it's because you're a sexist. All superhero watching the audience, they're all sexist. And then we have proof. Like, I mean, that's what all of this is designed to do. Is you know, I had we had that gal, the former Sweet Baby narrative designer who worked on that dating simulator, Validate, which by all accounts is just a garbage ass game. Like, it's just terrible. It's not fun. You don't even control your own self. You play as some other stupid character, so you're living somebody else's story rather than, you know, your own dating sim. And it didn't do well, and she was like, well, it's because I'm not a white man. And it's like, that didn't make any sense at all. That wasn't even the realm of discussion, but it just is now because you said it. So that's what this will continue to be, just like it was in movies.
I have a question for you, Greg. So because I saw that was a black female game designer, and she was on live stream, and she was saying something like, if white men had made that game, or if I had been a white man, that game would have been successful, but I'm a black woman, so it failed. Does she honestly believe that? Or is that a bullshit excuse that she knows is bullshit?
It's hard to tell, because her other statements, I think that she just sees the world in that woman particularly, Dani Lalanders was her name. She in particular just sees the world through like a very victim lens. I mean, that was part of a whole bit of the video where she was talking about people don't take me seriously. And her exact quote is it because I'm black? Probably. So like clearly no one's even ever said anything like directly racist to her, because she had to go with it's probably because I'm black, which doesn't, I wish I could have found. Did you guys ever watch The Nanny with Fran Drescher? Years ago, there was one episode where she took a DNA test and like had like 1%, or she thought she had, black ancestry or some crap. She gets pulled over and she tells the police officer, I know you're pulling me over because I'm black. And it was pretty great.
Deep cut.
Yeah. But I mean, I think she believes it. I really do. I think that she just kind of lives her life that every setback is because of some kind of political identity. And it's baffling that people live their life that way, but she clearly does. She really thought if a white guy made a dating sim that it would be a banger. Like, no dating sim has ever been wildly successful. It's just not a popular genre of video game.
Mhm.
Unless
might
it's
have to
like a
arrange this,
hentai
Despot.
dating thing, like the mature side of Steam. Those do really well, I'm told, but just the vanilla ones, no.
Well, Despot, couldn't we make like your Frost Nixon analogy? Couldn't we apply that to race as well?
When a woman does it, that means that it is not illegal.
So you could do like a race one. It's like your Barbie one. What was your Barbie term?
Schrodinger's
Barbie.
feminist.
Yeah, exactly. You could do that with race as well.
How does that work? So you're Oh, I know what you're saying. You're simultaneously a victim of a terrible racist system, but at the same time, you are powerful and successful at whatever you do because you have black girl magic or something.
Yeah. So whatever is relevant to you at whatever point, you can apply from those two categories, I guess. Yeah. So
there's got to be some kind of term made up for this, like we have tropes for just about everything these days, but there's got to be like the trope of the superpowered minority or Schrodinger's minority. That's what we need to call this. They are simultaneously oppressed, but also simultaneously overcoming all of the other isms and phobes and all that shit at the same time. And it's just, depending on your observation, depends on how the waveform collapses.
Right. Yeah. So one takeaway for me is that if you're on the gaming side, the woke side, the progressive side, and you weigh in on tweets and you try and weigh in the mess, the toilet wall that is Twitter and social media, if you weigh in, it's already a loss, no matter how many points you make, because you're just exposing yourself in a forum where you're going to get trashed, where people who are quite savvy and have like this huge engine or ecosystem to talk about it ad nauseum and at length and break you down and frame you however they want to frame you. You've already lost the narrative, even if you're trying to claim it or frame it if you go on social media. So that these people don't learn that lesson. Maybe I'm wrong, because maybe they have their supporters on their side who read the tweet and engage with it in different ways. But that seems to be, they seem to lose the prevailing discourse, at least online and in social media, when they do that. So that's one takeaway.
Well, I think the other thing is that it sort of brings back into focus the fact that journalism is about social media nowadays. Like, that's been a big problem for a long time, but that's what's really coming to the forefront with this, is that all of these news stories are about fucking tweets. I mean, like,
yeah.
That's been a big issue that's been going on in journalism for quite some time. They're really all op-ed pieces, but then to justify and make it seem like they did reporting, they quite literally screen grab tweets and say, here are some tweets that we found. I mean, I can go on Twitter and I can find any opinion that I want. I could go online and find opinion that oranges are a sign of white supremacy. I could find at least 3 or 4 tweets, and I could put them and have a headline saying that some people believe oranges are white supremacy, and write an entire article about it, or have ChatGPT write the articles, which a lot of them do. To me, that's been a big thing, is that all of these news stories are he said, she said, he tweeted, she tweeted bullshit. I mean, this is gossip rag. This is 8th page bullshit that we're talking about as hard-hitting news. And that's the sign that journalism is really, really failing.
Well, in gaming, I guess, because in other art forms or creative mediums, if it's film stars or streaming stars, people care about their relationships and what they've done and where they're going and their publicity shots, and they're beautiful. But people in the gaming industry, no one actually cares about, the product developers so much. So you've got a narrow window to talk about either the product and its gameplay, or tweets that explode. So those are the things you can talk about. So it's pretty shitty. Yeah, but I don't know if there's any clear winners or losers in this thing. I think the fact that it's kind of like a mutually assured destruction, or a stalemate, or even just going into the echo chambers and the thing, there's a slight sea change, because normally the default win would go to the established legacy media, who would then frame criticism as, a bunch of reactionaries. So that's twisted a little bit, changed a little bit.
Yeah.
So Greg, well, we've got you. Can you take us through this?
Yeah, I think last week or a week and a half ago, the U.S. Department of Justice announced an anti-monopoly suit against Apple, claiming that they are engaging in anti-competitive practices and essentially I'm unbiased on this. I'm working on a video because I think this is utter bullshit. And I don't even like Apple that much. I don't really use a lot of their products except for an iPad, but I still just don't like the principle of this. I've got they put out like a little, it's an 88-page lawsuit, which I've read, but also they put out this little briefer. And basically they highlighted 5 things that they're upset about. They say that they're blocking super apps, which I don't know if those are popular. I know they're popular in China. That's the big WeChat is always the thing people use. In New Zealand or Korea, do you guys are super apps like real big? Because they're not big in the States. Like we like our individual apps to do individual jobs. Are those big at all?
No, New Zealand, we're still using a string and 2 tin cans, so we're not really caught up to you guys.
Despot, is that big in Korea, super apps?
I don't even know what a super app is, Greg.
Oh, that's a no then. So they're saying that basically Apple is not liking super apps because they sort of take the place of an operating system. And if you engage, if anybody successfully made one, then you wouldn't really need the hardware of an iPhone.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah.
They say that they're suppressing mobile cloud streaming services like Xbox Game Pass, which actually just 2-3 months ago they allowed that. So they are working on that. They said that they are excluding cross-platform messaging apps. This is the whole blue bubble, green bubble bullshit. That they're saying that is degrading the security of messaging because they don't encrypt non-Apple messages, and the images are shitty and all that kind of stuff. Their fourth thing
so
is
you're saying that essentially in layman's terms, super apps are apps that are that become like a one-stop shop where you basically do everything and coordinate everything when you're online within the app.
Yes. So the big one that I found was in China. They use one called WeChat, and it started as like just a straight up chat messaging service, and then they added a payment system, and then it grew from there. I think it was launched in 2011, and now it connects to city services. Like you can schedule city service appointments, you can buy train tickets. It feeds into their like social credit type thing. When COVID was big, like you could link it to like a smartwatch, and it would it would check your pulse and your biometrics, and you could use that to like scan QRs to say like I'm safe to be in public or whatever. You can shop on it, you can do game, like I mean anything you could think of takes place inside this one app, and it's got a bunch of little mini apps. And apparently in China, like it has like 1 billion users, and people consider it to be necessary at this point. Like you can't get by without it. They're complaining, the government's complaining that they're diminishing the functionality of non-Apple smartwatches. So if you have an iPhone and you try to use a different watch, there are certain functions that you can't do. A very famous one is that you can't reply on the watch. I'm a big guy with big fingers, so it's not really, I don't get that. Like, but you can't type out a reply on the watch and send it unless it's an Apple Watch. And then their last big bullet point is that they limit third-party digital wallets. So Apple has like a tap to pay function, which Android does too, but Apple will not allow any, like you have to use Apple Pay in order to use like a tap to pay phone pay function or watch pay function or whatever. So you are not allowed to use like your bank's tap to pay feature or whatever. Like Apple Wallet has to be involved. And then a big complaint that all of this involves is that basically Apple takes a cut off of every one of these things, like the digital wallet, everything in their ecosystem, they take little bits. And so they have a monopoly on their own ecosystem. And they take 30% or 15 now introductory, since Epic kind of got in their shit years back. But in my opinion, on their platform, they can take whatever percentage they want. And I think is rather than relying, I don't like to rely on the government to solve those consumer issues. Like years ago, when it was revealed that they were purposely degrading their old phones, like they were making the new software updates almost impossible for older phones to run, and intentionally making your old hardware unfit so that you would have to buy new shit. To me, that's legal action. Like, yes, the government should be on that kind of thing, because that is unknown to you that they are going behind your back to degrade your old hardware just because they want you to buy more stuff. That to me feels illegal, and that's a good government use. But everything that our Department of Justice is complaining about, to me, just feels like they're too big and we don't like it. They're too good at getting people into their ecosystem, and people feel trapped. And my big argument is, yeah, we know, like everybody, like none of these things that they have listed off, I don't feel like anybody is they don't know that. And I feel like every company is trying to do that. My example that I'm using is Amazon. I use Amazon for a lot of stuff. They do cheap shipping here. I use their music service. I use their video service. I use their Audible and ebook service. They consolidate my billing for a lot of that stuff. So I just have one monthly amount that goes to Amazon, and then it's all consolidated. So like their convenience is trapping me in a way. I could get out if I wanted to, but I don't really want to. And I think a lot of Apple users like the convenience. They like the fact that they don't have to shop around for hardware. It's just one hardware. It's iPhone 13, 14, or 15, or 15S, or whatever the fuck. There's like 2 watches you get to buy. And I think that there's a case to be made for the simplicity that Apple offers, and people like that. They don't want to be burdened with the decisions. They just want Apple to go, here, this is the new phone, buy this one. And they go, all right, and that's fine. And they're willing to pay a premium for that. And I don't think that it really qualifies as a monopoly just because they're serving the customer too well.
Yeah. When it gets down to basic functionality of life, like paying for things in the public sphere, in the public square, if you're doing stuff which is functional about how you comport yourself and how you do basic tasks, if there's a sort of like semi kind of compulsion where you can only use this outlet or this this way of paying, if you're aligned to this or you're within this ecosystem, if it gets into that very, very plebeian public square, and there's sort of a compulsion where you have to be aligned with us or aligned with them, otherwise it can get tricky. If it gets down to that level, then I guess I have issues. But basically, I agree with your sentiments, I suppose. Let the market sort it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now they're huge. I mean, there's no denying that they're large, but I think that I don't feel that they've done so in like a manipulative, tricky manner. They've just they've made all their shit work together. And yeah, I mean, like that's the thing. I mean, I get why I'm not a big Apple person, but I understand that people like the ecosystem. They like the fact that they can just buy a phone and a MacBook and a tablet and a watch, and they're all the same UI, and they all just work together seamlessly. And there's a real convenience to it. That's a service, that's value that Apple is bringing. I don't.
What about Bill's sentiment here that the problem is that Apple's convenience is locking folks into both existing and new systems? That's where it's anti-competitive.
Lock folks in existing and new systems. So I guess he's maybe referring to the watch thing. Like that was our Attorney General. Like his one big example was like the watch. Like the Apple Watch, to my knowledge, does not work with other phones very well. So if you own an Apple Watch and it's time to get a new phone, then you're probably going to buy an iPhone because you already have the Apple Watch. And that was one thing they cited was a financial burden to the customer, that since all of their stuff only works with their stuff, and up until recently, like you had to buy special cables and all of that. So you have to to leave Apple, you have to leave everything behind. You have to leave your iPad and your phone and your watch and all of that and make a full break. And they feel that is a financial burden, and it traps people in their ecosystem. So, I mean, I get what Bill is saying there. But my feeling is I think a lot of people know that they're trapped and they like it. Apple provides objectively inferior service. Like there are features that are lacking in Apple, but their customers 100%. Don't care. And to me, like my example is I don't use Linux, and Linux users are like, you have all the freedom, you can do anything you want. Like I don't want to do anything I want. I don't want that. Like I have Windows. I just want to open a window and I want to do my shit. And I want to turn, like, I don't care about being a power user. I'm not interested in that. And so like I use an Android phone, and I like some of the cool features that it has that Apple doesn't, like widgets, and I have customizability, but I do also understand that a lot of Apple users are like, yeah, that sounds cool, but I just don't care that much. Like it's not worth leaving the Apple ecosystem just to get that little extra flexibility. I don't mind having limited flexibility when everything is all, it just fits together.
Yeah. Well, I'm probably the least tech savvy person here, but yeah, I mean, people project their own fears and assumptions onto this stuff, but I think the market usually works out, and there's, as you say, enough government regulation to weigh in when they expose stuff.
They are, yeah. I mean, and it already is kind of turning. Like iPhone 15 sales are not that great because the company, I mean, it's been a big complaint. There's really not much left to innovate on as far as phones are concerned. And so their phone sales are not great because there's really not much left to do. And so people are getting frustrated with their lack of, new features and innovation. And so, yeah, the market will start to swing the other way when they're not the top dog anymore, or there will be a cheaper competitor or whatever. Like, since Android is open source, there will be some company that, comes out with something cheaper that works. And then there will also be competitors that fail, like Windows Phone. I mean, Apple didn't destroy Windows Phone. Windows Phone destroyed Windows Phone. It just sucked. It was not fun to use. And Windows 8 sucked. And it was just a colossal disaster that was nobody's fault but Microsoft's. So, and it failed, and that's okay. That's capitalism, and I love it.
You're right. Like, there's only so many camera lenses you can have on the back of a phone before it starts to look like a fly eye. Like, you can only do so many iterations of that. One thing that's always really sad to me is that when the envisioned dream sci-fi cool thing actually happens, everyone just goes, yeah, I guess it's pretty good, and just moves on. Like, for 20 or 30 years, the idea of you could have a computer watch thing with a screen on it on your wrist. Wow, imagine the future. And then it rolls around and everyone's like, yeah, that's sort of pretty good. But I think it's too expensive and it's not compatible with my So it's like we get to the moon in 1969 and it's like, whoa, traveling to the stars. And then 2 or 3 years later, oh wait, there's some other people went up to the moon. I guess that's pretty cool.
Do you know what's crazy? If you were to go back to 1969, people watching the moon landing and say, I am from the year 2024, and in 2024, every single human being lives on Earth. There is not a single human in space. No one lives on the moon. There's not a base on the moon. We've never been to Mars. They wouldn't believe you. They'd be convinced, because if you'd asked somebody in 1969, what's the world going to look like in 2024? They'd say, we'll have a city on Mars or something.
Yeah, like half a century from now or more, we would imagine that everything would be vastly, almost incomprehensibly different and advanced, and everything would be egalitarian and resolved, and it'd be a wonderland of ideological happiness, and we've traveled to the furthest limits of space. No, it'll still be people bullshitting on social media and politics divided and garbage.
We can't be wasting time going into space. We're still trying to figure out what a woman is.
All the great technological advancements have gone for the exact wrong purposes. Essentially, is what you'd have to tell somebody. Everything has not been used the way you hope.
Yeah. What every generation says is, like, back in the 70s, they introduced the computers and they were saying, like, the problem of leisure. Now that the computers are here, how are people going to spend their time with the computers doing all their work for us?
They were right. They were right. Gaming, pornography, and gambling.
Yeah.
We're making up things to argue about. It's insane.
Yeah. Oh, well, speaking of making things to make up and argue about, what a beautiful segue. All right. That's my music, by the way. I just want to advertise that.
Yeah, it's good music.
That's beautiful.
Okay. All right, so I'll put up the timer, and then I always have to remember to pause it, and then I always have to remember to go back to the thing. All right, so our very first question. I'm starting off with a doozy. What is the worst sex scene in a film? And you've got a lot to choose from. And Despot, I mean, like, you could go to Bros. It's pretty easy.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Already in the lead. Okay, Greg, have you made a selection?
Yeah, I think I got one.
Okay, here it comes. You know the drill. When
I'm ready.
The clock begins now.
The worst sex scene is in the Eternals, because they wanted to keep that PG-13, and so they couldn't show any skin whatsoever. So they both still had their super suits on and everything. They were just laying in the grass in the sand, missionary, and they were just kind of rubbing back and forth for a minute to imply the fact that sex was happening. And then that guy flew into the sun. So that was the most non-sexy sex scene ever.
Do you know, I've seen the Eternals. I think I spent the first third of the movie talking to my wife because I was so fucking bored. And we were commenting on how, like, checked out of the movie we were, and then she went to bed and I watched the rest of it, and I don't remember a sex scene. Like, that's how checked out of that movie I was.
I don't recall one either.
It was short and it was mostly implied, but they touted it. They were like, "We got a sex scene in the MCU." Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Right, Despot, you're up. Your time begins now.
The worst sex scene in a film. Oh, are we going?
Yeah, you're on.
No, you got to
It's
start it
paused.
again. It's paused.
Damn it.
One of
Okay,
these days.
There you go. You're on.
The worst sex scene in a film is in Bros. The sex scene between hot dream guy and Billy Eichner. Extremely bright lighting, horribly trite rom-com stock music. The camera is stationary directly above Eichner's face as he is anally penetrated. His moan of pleasure is audible, and his face takes on a look that can best be described as scrunchy ecstasy as hot dream guy enters him. The camera lingers on his face for a few seconds. The scene was described by YouTuber Echo Chamberlain as, quote, ghastly.
I call bullshit, okay? Because this one was clearly put together for the show specifically.
I don't like the verbiage that you used in all of that.
Well, I'm surprised you didn't go with a scene where they're going for the super macho aspect, but they're literally slapping at each other. That's the one you didn't go for.
Yeah, that one's pretty bad.
That one lives on.
I don't even think I'm going to fill up the 30 seconds here. I think I'm going to put like 10 seconds.
All right. Okay, the Eternals, Bros, and Dark Hour, your time begins now.
So I came up with one that is probably from the worst acted movie of all time. It was already mentioned in the chat, actually, The Room, if everybody recalls that movie, where I think we may have seen not only the worst sex scene ever, it's the first one ever recorded between two people who have no idea how sex even works, because Tommy Wiseau, the angle he was at makes absolutely no sense for penetration. He was way too high. It would have been right in the like lower rib cage, upper navel area. I don't know what he was doing. So
hit and roll.
Yeah, those are all impressive. I probably would have gone with the pool scene from Showgirls, where the woman is flailing and splashing around and
oh yeah, that
would have been good. Jeez. All right. Well, obviously, Bros has to go through. Like that's just.
I mean, clearly.
Yeah.
The description made me uncomfortable.
Yeah, I don't know. The Eternals, at least it has the merits of brevity. It's not like toe-curlingly embarrassing and awkward. It's not protracted and horribly long. So, out of 3 miserable sex scenes, I guess I have to go with Dark Hour and Despot on this one. Yeah. But don't worry, because our next one, I can't wait to see what you guys come up with this. What film should every modern teenage boy see? Okay, so you've got your drippy and flaky, emasculated new generation of adolescents, young men, and you've got a chance to put a bit of stick about, all right, to sort of like grab them by the figurative lapels and say, here's what you need to see. So, Greg, we'll go with you first of all, and your time begins now.
All right, I'm usually cheeky in these, but I'm serious. Every teenage boy needs to see the Dead Poet Society. I think this is a movie. It's an absolute classic. It's one of my favorites. I saw it when I was a teenager, and I think what I like about it is that it doesn't portray this version of masculinity. It's like macho Andrew Tate shit. I mean, it's about poets, about writing. I mean, that's not the most manly activity, but I think it's just about grabbing life by the horns and being a man of your own destiny and taking charge and actually knowing what you want and not using the word fucking very when you write. And it's phenomenal.
All right. Carpe diem from Greg. Nice. Very nice. Okay. Despot, your time begins now.
Every teenage boy should watch Rocky, and every man has fucked up his life through laziness and bad choices and redeems himself through self-belief, hard work, and finding purpose. Yes, he does get lucky by being selected to fight the champ, but it is his choice to really try to win the fight and train for it that turns his life around. And his purpose comes not just from fighting, but from finding a woman to share his life with. Every teenage boy will fuck up his life, or he'll fuck up in his life. He needs to know that it only takes a few good choices to turn things around.
Oh, these are beautiful. Bring a tear to my eye. Okay, Dark Hour. The what film should every modern teenage boy see? Your time begins now.
All right, considering the fact that World War III seems to be imperative, it's going to happen any day. I think it's imperative that we start to show the youth of the young boys of society Red Dawn on loop all the time. That way they're prepared. I want them watching it so often. Yeah, I want them watching it so often that you're going to hear them screaming Wolverines from their fucking bedroom, and the implications could be up to interpretation as to why they're doing that. But they definitely need to toughen up a little bit, I think.
God, that's really hard. These are brilliant choices. You're right. World War III, the apocalypse, societal dysfunction is coming. It's probably coming in November, so we need to get it on a loop now.
You got a movie about it next month, I think. Isn't when does Civil War come out?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's April here for us at least. It's April like 11th or something like that.
April 20th? April 12th. Well, that's in the UK. I don't know what the US release is here.
I think boys do need to see Dead Poets Society. They need to have that sensitive side brought out of them. They need to have inculcated the idea of socializing with your friends and creating new connections. They need to have that idea of connecting with literature, that literature can be cool and hip, that you can find a cool mentor, and they need to confront the pain and the contradictions and hypocrisies in life that can also be prevalent there, like we have in that stirring third act. So I guess
that is
gets the point.
That whole genre of movie, coming of age, has really just completely gone by the wayside. You never see good coming of age movies anymore.
Let's see a lot of people saying Stand By Me out in the chat. That was my backup. I wrote a backup one too, which honestly I probably should have went with Stand By Me. I had better stuff written for that one, but I wanted
that's a good one.
Yeah.
There are, I mean, I was going to be, I went to school to be a teacher, and then I work in industry now because the money is like, it just, I couldn't say no. But Dead Poets Society, and then there was another movie called Stand and Deliver. And I saw
Stand and Deliver,
and I was like, I want to be a fucking teacher. That made teaching look so fucking glamorous and amazing, and like you would change kids' lives and shit. That's not the reality, but
kids.
They're fantastic.
I'm also going to give Dark Hour a point because I think that we need to prepare boys for.
What's going to really suck is if I get through the next round and I know I'm not really that good with Lord of the Rings.
The one time I nearly got punched a hit in public was because I did teaching for a year, and I got so used by the end of the year to like if a class is crowded with boys and you have to sort of like shove them aside and kick their sports bags aside, and so I got used to doing that I was out in public once, and there were 3 boys in front of me who were just like strangers. They had nothing to do with the school, but I was so in my own head and so used to that kind of that mindset of just shoving boys out of the way that I literally just shoved these stranger 3 teenage boys out of my way on the sidewalk. They were not happy. All right, so the next question. Here we go. What movie character would make the worst children's show host? And I'll just take a little moment here to also say that Greg is actually retroactively last week's winner because I went back and watched Blue.
Yes.
And he is by far the greatest on-screen dad I've ever seen. Like, I was getting emotional watching that stuff.
That show will make you emotional. It's crazy. I'll keep watching it when my kids leave the room. It's fantastic.
How did you come across an Australian cartoon production?
It's on Disney Plus. It's very big here in the States on Disney Plus.
Yeah. So much pathos. Okay, so Greg, your time begins. For what movie character would make the worst children's show host? Your time begins now.
Oh shit. I'll go with Chucky, the good guy doll. Because he would look like he's a great children's show host. As a doll that hosts a show would be fantastic. But then he would disrupt the show every time, trying to play hide the soul, and the kids would never get anything done, and they wouldn't actually have a good conversation. And in the end, there would probably be death or permanent emotional scars, and the show wouldn't last very long. So it would be very, very terrible. Chucky.
That's good. Yeah, I can see how he would be brought onto the show, and then he would just like light up a cigarette and stuff. Yeah. All right, that's pretty good.
How the fuck are you, kids? What?
Yeah. All right. Okay. Like he's angry at the producer for getting the edit wrong, so he just stabs him with a knife. Okay. Despot.
What
movie character would make the worst children's show host? Go.
The worst children's show host would be Lou Bloom from Nightcrawler. He pours every ounce of his being into the role, spends countless hours online studying to perfect the right facial expressions, vocal affectations, and body language. But under the polished exterior of his being pulsates artificiality that permeates every silence, causes great and visible discomfort in the children, and sets every viewer on edge. A wave of cringe washes over the room every time Lou pulls one of his patented catchphrases. Who knew a little cutie like you could be so insightful?
Ooh. Yeah, brutal. Okay, cool. All right. Here we go. Dark Hour. What movie character?
I'm not sure. I'm just gonna pick. I'll go with that one. Okay. So I have two. So.
Okay.
Impromptu. He's going with it.
What movie character would make the worst children's show host? Go.
I think that it would be Willy Wonka, and my reasons why is because the game show, it would be a game show. Everything would be deadly to the children, and even if you won, you're not even sure what you won because you did not read closely in the terms of service before you wrote it because you can't. And even if you do win the grand prize, it's a chocolate factory where you now have to deal with Oompa Loompa union disputes, corporate espionage, and tooth decay. Not to mention the fact that you probably don't know how to make chocolate, so you're just looking at Chapter 11 bankruptcy anyway.
Right. This is hard because I wonder if you went a little bit outside the remit. So you're saying that viewers of the TV show can get invited to the studio in a kind of Jim will fix it kind of way?
Well, I was just saying that basically he would turn the what we see in the movie into a game show, and it would be if you won the grand prize, you got what was the prize in the show.
And they're deadly. I'm envisioning like a Squid Game with kids in a chocolate factory, and I think it's the greatest show ever.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I reverse engineered that whole thing from Oompa Loompa union disputes,
right?
And everything else was just out from there. So,
Jeez. Well, just by a hair. I mean, well, Chucky, obviously, because that would be because you can imagine how he would get onto the screen. You imagine how that would happen. And then the floods of complaints coming in. So that would be great because he wouldn't have anything to say. So he'd just go on rambling monologues full of hatred and spite and trying to get the kids. So that'd be good. And then I think I have to go with Dark Hour. I think you're straight off the side of the remit, but I think...
Now, the worst part is I'm like not prepared for the next round.
What is... So are we talking about which Galadriel are we talking about?
That was actually the thing. I wasn't sure.
Is it Galadriel or is it Galadriel?
Right. Galadriel, Rings of Power. So the stoic, cold, sexless Galadriel. And you have to wine and dine.
I didn't watch that show, so I'll just make it up, I guess.
All right. I'm gonna let all three of you have a go since it's all a little bit up in the air. So Despot, you're very lucky here. So Greg, I mean, did you plan yours for the original Galadriel? Because that would be weird.
No. I figured we were going with Galadriel.
Yeah, so it's Galadriel, the impenetrable in every sense heroine of the Rings of Power. So how are you going to break the ice here? How are you going to get through to this 2,000-year-old, seen it all, super cynical girl boss chick? Okay, how are you going to win her over? Your time begins now.
It's never worked for any of them, but I would go with the male feminist route, and I would attempt to apologize to her and tell her that I love intersectional feminism and use a lot of cool buzzwords and just apologize for everything constantly in the hopes that by cringing and cowering she would maybe take pity on me, and then we could have a relationship where I'm the beta and she's the alpha, and that's how it would work.
Oh God, that's horrific. That's terrible. Imagine the monologues with the steely-eyed look that she would give you all the time. God.
Do you know what that actually reminded me of something? There's this video online of like Extinction Rebellion protesters in the UK throwing soup on a painting, and it was a guy and a girl, and the girl was okay looking. She wasn't anything special, but she was nice enough. And the guy threw paint on the painting, then he turns to the girl and holds out his hand. And the girl takes his hand, and you just knew when she took his hand, he was like, "Oh my God, it's happening!" He's doing this whole fucking just to get laid. He's willing to go into the museum, throw
and get arrested
on a painting, get arrested, and it didn't work. That girl didn't spread her legs for that guy. She spread her legs for fucking Chad. Okay, the same Chad who laughs at her whole Extinction Rebellion bollocks.
That's right. Yeah. Oh God, that's left a bitter taste in the mouth, Greg. God, it's probably right. That's the sad thing, but we'll see what Despot's got to offer. Despot, your time begins now.
Okay, the date begins with a quiet chat in a cafe, but as I'm explaining the merits of 90s video game music, I'm interrupted by an insistence that Sauron is still out there. After trying and failing to change the subject, I take her to a bowling alley for a quick game. Things seem okay, but then Galadriel overhears a young man bragging to his date about his experiences trekking in the wilderness for a week. Galadriel storms over, looks the man up and down in disgust, and spits, "You have not seen what I have seen," in his face. Then asks his date how she can be satisfied with half a man, and I leave and go home and have a wank.
Okay, I don't think
You're
I
right.
can
She
top
does
that at all.
I was gonna mention the trope that she'll be having a conversation with a male character, and they're about like 4 feet apart. He'll make his point, and then she will sweep in right up to his face to make her point. That's like her trope that she does at least once per episode.
I don't. What I was getting at basically is I don't see a scenario in which pursuing Galadriel sexually is worth the sheer misery that it would cause. Like, sex is never worth that much pain and misery and suffering.
Well, and you were correct that I don't think my strategy is going to work, because who does she go for in the show? She goes for fucking Sauron. So in the end, she went for the literal bad boy.
Both me and Greg have given up the idea that we can penetrate the impenetrable Galadriel. We just can't. We're not even
Dark
I don't even know what route I'm going to go with. This is going to be. I'm going to spitball random shit. Let's try this.
Well, the goalpost is pretty open, so let's just see what you come up with. Your time begins now.
Okay, so how do I break the ice? I guess I would go. You went with the male feminist. I'll go with the trying to placate her not be looking as old as she actually is route, and go with the cougar route. We'll go with that. Where do we go from there? I'd probably take her horseback riding, because that's the only thing I remember was that ridiculous face she made. And likely at that point is when I would just veer off into a different spot and just take that horse and go as far away as possible, because I realized this is going absolutely nowhere.
Well, I think you found a way. Like, you can play up to her narcissism about her looks and still being youthful and beautiful, but you can also, extol the whole cougar, mature woman thing. So I think you're going to play to those. So I think you actually found a way into Galadriel. Amazing.
I think Darkgar has the highest chance of ultimately closing the deal.
Yeah, that's right. So Darkgar, today's surprise.
I'm the winner of the game. Yeah.
Having never seen the show.
The funny part was, after the last show, I was so pissed off with the way I failed the game. I was like, I will not let that happen again. And then you gave me the questions then. I was like, oh.
It's because me and Greg are afraid of her. We've seen the show and we're terrified because we know what she can do and how horrible she is to men and how much she enjoys torturing men. So we don't want to go anywhere near her. We don't want to be alone in a room with her, but Darkgar hasn't, so he
I'm just what's the worst that can happen here? And then I take her horseback riding and I just leave. There you go.
Well, Despot and Greg, your stones have sunk, and Darkhour, your ship has floated. So you are today's winner. Congratulations.
Yeah.
All right. And just like that, that's pretty much it for today, team. So it's been an amazing 2 hours. I think we've covered just about everything in the world of culture, entertainment, politics, and society. Wouldn't you agree?
I think there are a couple super chats, aren't there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna cover old. Oh no, when we covered that. Yeah.
Oh, look at this. Okay, so we got. Okay, how am I going to
Movie
pronounce
Cynic
this?
was here.
Was he? Oh,
yeah, Movie Cynic. Yeah.
Oh. Okay, so Barry McCockiner. Barry McCockiner. Yeah. Nice. Love that. Always love a bit of that. Explain what's in my profile pic in great detail. Despot, go.
All right. What we see is the end of Darkgar's date with Galadriel.
Guy even kind of looks a little bit like me, only he's not quite pale enough.
Oh shit!
By the way, that's Galadriel on top.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
The pale one is me. Okay, I got you.
Yeah. I just imagine next week we see Darkhour and his face is pale, he's all scarred, he's going, "You have not seen what I have seen."
All I need to do is I can make that happen. Just pull up a white screen, it turns me into a ghost. It's crazy.
Yeah. Okay. All right. The movie Cynic. So glad that he dropped by. Bro. GW is so good, bro.
Godzilla
GXK,
Kong.
Godzilla X Kong is so good, bro.
Godzilla X Kong. Yeah.
What's the X mean?
I think it's
not-
I think it's like
Time
supposed to be
versus.
Godzilla and Kong, but they just kind of
Exchanges.
I think it's like those songs we were looking at earlier. They just think it sounds cool, so fuck it. Just Godzilla X Kong instead of Godzilla V Kong.
It's extreme.
Aw, Floyda, come on. For 20 actual American dollars, that's like 25 New Zealand dollars. This is my favorite live stream. Wow. It's also my favorite live stream, so you're in great company.
You're going to want to spend those US dollars sooner rather than later. Before
the inflation's going to hit pretty hard.
They expire.
And Evan Dubiel for 10 American dollars. Do you guys like Star Trek? I follow all of your channels pretty closely. I don't recall you ever talking about it much. That's a good point, yeah. Because I think that my Star Trek is Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock Star Trek. And I feel that there's nothing really that I can add to that conversation. It's been done so much, and it's in me and who I am, and everything post Star Trek 4, maybe Star Trek 6. Even Star Trek The Next Generation, like I just go to Red Letter Media if I want anything to do with Star Trek The Next Generation. They've got that base covered. And all the modern Star Trek is just rubbish to me, so I don't bother. It doesn't stir me in any way, either way.
Yeah, I have not. I think I did sign up for Paramount Plus here recently for some reason. So somebody today asked me on a video if I would watch the Halo stuff, which I think is on Paramount. Maybe I'll watch the new Star Trek, but I have not seen anyone say the new Star Trek is great. And I'm with you. I'm Next Generation, Deep Space Nine era, and I don't really have any desire to watch Old Man Picard be beaten down like all of my other male, heroes from my youth. So doesn't sound great.
I was never much of a Star Trek person. I did enjoy The Next Generation when I was younger, but it wasn't it. When I was younger, I was always more of a Star Wars kid, and it just never resonated me with Star Trek. And then as I got older, I just got so far behind me with all the different shows and movies. I was just like, I'm not even going to bother trying to catch up on this. But now I have a live show where we watch movies all the time, so maybe I will.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, thanks to all those wonderful contributors. And what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to experiment with, rather than saying goodbye and then leaving an awkward 4 or 5 seconds where no one's quite sure if the stream has ended or not, and so everyone just stands like window mannequins or whatever, I'm just going to roll the end credits. So it just remains for me to thank the wonderful Greg Owen, the excellent Despot of Antrim, and today's winner. Oh my God, Dark Hour, you did it. Good job.
Yes.
All right, so that's it. Kakitiano, Harira, and everyone have the greatest of days, and we'll see you 2 weeks from now.